Mauritania, Senegal, Mali, Guinea, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Benin. All these nations were part of what was once called French West Africa. And no matter what tone-deaf justifications the former colonizers give, colonization always leads to the exploitation of the colonies. There's a reason Niger was one of the poorest nations in the world even before the coup. This is a country rich in natural resources, uranium, gold and oil, like one of the demonstrators mentioned earlier. But it was still considered one of the poorest nations in the world, because it has been in a situation that most former colonies face, an unequal power dynamic with its former colonizer. Some critics call it neo-colonization. Raw materials like uranium from Niger go to a former colonizer like France. It is used to fuel French nuclear power plants. The French energy sector benefits, sells its electricity abroad, generates billions, and then gives some of the money back to Niger as aid. Generates billions, and then gives some of the money back to Niger as aid. Generates billions, and then gives some of the money back to Niger as aid. This isn't a hypothetical scenario, this actually happens. France generates around $3.3 billion a year selling electricity. France generates around $3.3 billion a year selling electricity. France generates around $3.3 billion a year selling electricity. Generates billions, and then gives some of the money back to Niger as aid. Meanwhile, Niger, which supplies about 18% of France's and 5% of the world's uranium, remains poor. You can imagine that it would frustrate the people there. Niger's uranium is just one example. There are other resources and raw materials in all the former colonies that continue to get exploited. And it could explain the anti-French sentiment in the other coup-hit nations in the region, like Mali and Burkina Faso. It's an existing wound, a festering injustice,